There's an input and then there's an output. And the more of an input you put in, there's more of an output that puts out. I learned a long time ago that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Knowledge isn't power. Action on that knowledge is power. The marketplace decides.
Hey, David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve.
Now, look, you're catching me. I'm a little bit red. Just got back from Mexico. Typical London ginger. I spent too long in the sun. So I apologize about probably glaring your screen at the moment. But we've known each other for many years. And you are, without a doubt, the epitome of a serial entrepreneur, finance, real estate, co-founder with Todd of Dry Farm Wines. You've done a lot of things, but I've always recognized you as the eternal student. You've constantly wanted to saturate yourself. You quote great people. We were talking just a second ago about our mutual friend, Jeffrey Madoff. We were talking about your logo. We're going to go into that in a second. But you've constantly been a sponge to information, entrepreneurs to better yourself. Where did that come from?
I've always been a seeker. I probably drove my parents crazy because I ask questions. I love asking questions, even to people who don't necessarily want to give me the answers. It's just, I think if you're not continually seeking, looking, learning, you just shrivel up. I mean, we know we want to strive. I don't say we know, but I want to strive. I want to do better, but I also want to be, content, but not overly satisfied that I plateau. So I think somebody said, be happy, but not content, or content and not happy. Something you want to be. I want to be able to have an accomplishment, get a task done, reach a goal, pop a bottle of champagne or Dry Farm Wines, of course. Or with you, we'll have it with you. We always have an old fashioned, which I do like a good bourbon or a bourbon drink. So whatever the occasion, and take that moment in, and then go, okay, let's do something else. Let's do what's next. And I've always been in the 98th percentile of every test I've ever taken, and it's just I don't know. It's just I've felt just drawn to doing something more. And a lot of entrepreneurs, I heard it was said that we have an idea to do something, have no idea how to do it, and go, that sounds like a good plan. Let's just do that. When we were building Dry Farm Wines, I would tell people, hey, we built the plane while we were flying it. We came to market at the Dave Asprey Bulletproof Conference way back in the day in Pasadena, and it was like Black Friday at Walmart. I mean, it took off like crazy, and so we were just running to keep up with it. So, but my life, I've always done. I was a deputy sheriff in Atlanta for 15 years as a reserve officer. I've done, my first job out of college was real estate, full commission. You eat, you sell, you eat. You don't, you starve. I like a quid pro quo. You put it in, there's an input and then there's an output. And the more of an input you put in, there's more of an output that puts out. So that's just kind of I don't know where it comes from. It's just kind of who I am.
Now, you've been part of some of the greatest masterminds out there. I know you've come to the Speakeasy. You're a great Speakeasy and Sim Distillery member and advocate, and you've constantly gone out to be part of different people's information, knowledge, wheelhouse, sandpit, and to get that point of view. Why do you therefore think now is the time for you to stand up and go, hey, stop looking for the guru, be it yourself, be content with your knowledge that you have in order to be able to implement? We were talking earlier about how useful a great idea is without implementation. Why did it take you till now, with this curiosity that you constantly have to better you, to put a book together to say, hey, this is how you should be looking at, and be careful of who you're looking at as the guru to lead you? Why?
Because I think we all teach what we need to learn. And I was doing the same thing. I can't tell you how much I got out of the Tony Robbins Date with Destiny week-long intensive. I mean, it's intensive program that I did in 2016. I can't tell you how much I got from 5 years of individual therapy with a therapist. Going to Bo Eason's speech class, storytelling, speech telling class was amazing. I've done hypnosis. I've done all these different things, and part of it was seeking for who's going to give me the right answer. And I realized the answer has to come from within. And so the title of the book being "It's All the Same" is that it's not all the same and like it's all the same. It's all the same. And it's all about you. You are the one. Whether you do a 7-day Tony Robbins event or a 7-day silent meditation retreat in Costa Rica, or an ayahuasca journey, or you're a studier of whatever religion you follow, or what have you, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Earl Nightingale, the legendary Steve Sims. It's all the same because you are the guru. You're the one. Wayne Dyer said one time, he said, "You are God," which sounded to me kind of sacrilegious, even though I'm not that religious of a person. But he said, you're the one that you're praying to. So you're the one that's in charge. And so my meaning for this book was this could be the last book you have to read and I'm not here to create another program, another course, another app, and anything like that. I want people to know, find the thing that works, the modality that resonates with you, and then take it and run with it. Like podcast, for example. I remember getting into the podcast world, listening to podcasts in 2015. I think James Altucher was my very first one. And then I discovered Tim Ferriss and on and on and on. And I would just love listening to podcasts. And at one point, there's a lot of great information, a lot of great perspectives, a lot of great, ideas. And then I realized at some point, I got to stop listening to podcasts and doing something about it. Knowledge isn't power. Action on that knowledge is power. So, reading the book is one thing. Taking the course, doing the retreat, doing the therapy, the therapist, for people who have been in therapy, a lot of times you want to go, just tell me what to do. What's the answer, And their job isn't to tell you the answer. As mine said, my job is to get you to ask better questions. Well, that's right in my wheelhouse, as you know. I just love asking questions. So I just learned to ask better questions. And so after this book's been 5 years in the making. Part of it was, is this a story worth telling? Is this a story somebody wants to hear? I mean, you and I can chit chat at a Joe Polish event over a glass of wine or an old fashioned and tell stories and anecdotes and advice to each other or what have you. But is it going to be, 100 and some odd 30, 40 pages worth and needs to be put in a bound up thing and put on Amazon? So that was really for me. And that's kind of what it was for me. It was like, okay, I don't have the secret. There isn't a secret. The secret's you. You have it. You have, the Tin Man and the Lion, they all had the things they were going to the wizard for already. They just didn't know it. And that's really kind of what I wanted to put in this book.
You've always been very direct, and I've always loved that about you. You love to travel, you love to taste, you love to feel, you love to enjoy, you love to experience, you love to saturate yourself with that. But you're very direct, you're very opinionated, and if you've got something to say, something's on your mind, you're going to say it. I've always loved that. Is that the same tonality that we're going to get in this book?
Well, I am a Southerner by nature and birth, so I'd like to think I'm direct, but in a polite and courteous way, not an abrasive, and nobody wants to be told what to do. I learned a long time ago that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I've had some instances with people close to me, and I said, well, this is, a thing, da, 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 da. And they were like, not ready for it. So they didn't want to hear it. And so my approach is I'm just going to put out what I think to be true and valid and worthwhile, and then let the universe, if you're listening to the universe, you'll pick up on it. And if you're not ready to listen to it, then you won't. So, and maybe I've had difficult conversations with people. I had that was not well received one time. And I thought, and I felt a little bit bad about it, but I asked permission, hey, you asked about this. I have this thought about it. Can I share it with you? And they said yes, and I did. And they didn't really engage in the way that hoped was going to happen. But I walked away from there going, okay, well, maybe I cracked a shell or something. And sure enough, about 6 months later, this person came back and had some things that were resonated with them from what we had said. So, Nobody got their feelings hurt. Nobody was crying, flipping tables or anything like that. But, just put it out there in a polite, thoughtful way, not, hey, you should lose 50 pounds. You're fat. And nobody wants to hear that. But just, hey, I have this, this broccoli tastes a lot better than that French fries. Maybe they go that route. So that's kind of that's my approach. So again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying here's, I try to put it in anecdote format. There's a story. Here's an example. Here's how it resonated with me. I actually had a friend who I've known for many, many years, and he read it, and he was having a situation with one of his sons, and he took the story that I had told about me and my father and used that same philosophy with his son just a few days later and thanked me for it. So that's all I can do. That's all I can do.
Right. Yeah, you never know what story may resonate with someone else. I don't want to wait until the end to tell people where to get the book. So It's All the Same by David Allred. Where can they get it?
Well, I have the website, it's allthesame.com, but it's literally on every single bookseller website. I mean, it's on, of course, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. If you, wherever, as they say on TV, wherever you buy your books, that's where it's at. So,
are you doing the audio?
I'm looking. I can't. As I'm doing this podcast, I can't stand the sound of my own voice. I'm in the process of finding someone. And your accent, I'm afraid, is a little too heavy for what I think our audience wants. So I will. There will be an audiobook as soon as I find the right voice. Literally,
you found the right voice. I'm going to argue with you here. It always annoys me. Pisses me off when authors with such a strong emotion and character and personality get some dullard to actually read their book. Look, people have only heard you for, I don't know, like 12 minutes at the moment, but I cannot imagine anyone else reading your book other than David, and you won't enjoy it. I'm telling you, reading your own book for an audio is a painful process. I've done it twice, never want to do it again. Didn't want to do it the first time. Sure as shit, didn't want to do it the second time. But I'm telling you, David has to read his own book. Are you up for that challenge?
I usually don't shirk from many challenges, and I'll strongly consider it. I mean, a book like Green Lights with Matthew McConaughey, I think you almost have to get the audiobook because he's an actor, for pity's sake. I mean, he Martin Short's memoir was fantastic because he's reading it, hits the right points, and it's his. And the memoir, and those are memoirs, so I think it really does need to be in the author's voice. This is not memoir. This is more not guidance, but like observation. So I will consider it. I mean, shoot, if you can do it, I can do it. That's all I.
There you go. Okay, good. Then I'll accept that one, and we'll move on from there. We're going to put down the links below, but as you said, it's all the same.com. It ain't that hard. Even if you're driving and listening to this, you can remember that. So I want to actually step into a bit of a conversation we were having earlier. For a long time, you were the money and the structure man. You would turn up, great idea. You would take not a second fiddle, but second limelight. You wouldn't be in the spotlight. There would always be someone else, and then David supporting. You would always be equal billing within the stock holding, but you were quite happy with that. You're not now. And, you've got a shirt sitting there with DA on it, so you've got your logo on it. You quoted our mutual friend, Jeffrey Madoff, who we're giving way too much airtime to, so we need to stop that. He's a bit cocky at best. But he always said, if you're going to wear a brand, make it your own.
He said, he said, never wear a logo that's not your own. And I took that to heart. And so I figured, why not?
So why? For someone that's been quite happy you've got a tremendous character, but for someone with your character to be actually, in the background is almost a crime. Is the DA logo proof that David's coming out?
I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I'm 51 years old. I've done a few things. I look at my trajectory as being did this, did that, did this, did that, to varying degrees of success. But everything I learned from, I've lived in different cities, and I was asked one time which was my favorite place to live. And I said, I've loved every place I've lived for the time that I was there, whether it was, growing up in Raleigh or going to school in Atlanta and then lived in Atlanta for 20 odd years, and then Santa Barbara, then back to Atlanta, then Northern California, and now Florida, and now I'm in France at the moment. So it's been, and I've had the fortune of making the moves on my terms. It wasn't like I got a job transfer or, run out of town on a rail, as they say. So I don't know. It's just, I feel like I don't know if it's time. It's just an evolution. Again, you started this by saying I'm a learner, I'm a seeker. And this is just the next step to me. It's like, now I feel like I have something to say. It took me, a long time, maybe not a long time, but I've started, as the people who know me, they know I'm not sitting in the corner or shrinking violet. I've never really done a whole lot of the publicity side of things. I've done TV, I've done radio, I've probably given 1,000 talks when I was in the financial world to audiences. So I'm not shy. Nobody's going to ever accuse me of that.
No.
But yeah, this is definitely the next phase of, putting a book out, putting your name on something, as I cover my name, and, having it on a bookshelf somewhere. I was just at the Library of Congress. A friend of a friend is the communications director there and gave us a behind the scenes tour. And, it's the Library of Congress control number book. It's one of the 175 million items that the Library of Congress has. Mine is probably off in a warehouse in suburban Virginia. It's not exactly next to the Thomas Jefferson Bible, but it was really neat to be there and bring the book there and kind of do a little photo shoot and be like, I belong to this place now. At the risk of really giving Jeff Madoff too much credit, he has an excellent podcast with our friend Dan Sullivan called Anything and Everything, and it's just the two of them riffing, and it's great. And they did an episode on imposter syndrome, and Jeff wrote a play called Personality, of which I'm also a co-producer with him and Tim Ferriss and other great people. And he said, one day until I wrote a play, I was never a playwright. Now I'm a playwright. And it's not an imposter that you weren't. It's not imposter syndrome because you didn't do it. And so they were kind of talking about, in that topic, are you an imposter? Like you like to say, are you standing in front of the red Ferrari that's not really yours to try to sell a course or a book? That's what they were saying is an imposter. That's a fake. But the imposter syndrome is like, am I really good enough? Am I worthy enough? Am I, and people as high up as President Obama said they had imposter syndrome. So I hadn't written a book. I hadn't been an author until I was. I hadn't been a deputy sheriff until I was. I hadn't had a liquor license until I did. It's just those types of things. So now I'm this, this is the next part of the evolution of growth and sharing it. And I feel like I have something to say on a wider audience at this point.
I'm interrupting this podcast for 35 seconds to give you more value. If you are an ambitious entrepreneur looking for the opportunity in everything you come across, don't just listen to this podcast. Imagine taking part in these conversations every week. Imagine having a new network of creative and disruptive entrepreneurs to support and push you into becoming the person you can be. With this high level and exclusive community, it exists. Head to simsdistillery.com to learn more. Yeah, there's a classic line that imposters don't get imposter syndrome.
Correct, exactly.
And I've always liked that. I also love the fact that the rooms that we've been in, whether it be Joe Polish, whether it be the Sim Speakeasy, any of these events worth being at, is a room full of serial failures. People that quite simply have tried many things and failed, learned, gained education, and then sometimes it's taken them into completely different directions, but they've allowed that failure to refine them and not define them. And I think that's the real difference of the imposter, isn't it?
To not let the experiment define you. I think I read in a certain book called Blue Fishing that you don't call them failures, you call them experiments. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
And I changed. I don't say failure. I said experiment or challenge. I don't have problems. Russell Simmons, I think it's Russell Simmons, says he doesn't have problems. He has puzzles because puzzles have solutions. And when you, I just posted on Instagram a video from the woman that started Hay House. I forget her first name, series of books on being helpful in self-development. And she said, the universe is listening, and the person you talk to the most is yourself. So the person you talk to all day, every day, day in, day out is you. So the words you choose, and that's, a big Tony Robbins thing, and it's other things too, but, negative self-talk doesn't help anybody. And so I like to call them experiments. I experimented. This didn't work. You put too much sugar in the pie, it's too sweet. You didn't put enough salt in the potatoes, they're too dry. So I have a friend years ago in Atlanta who was also a serial entrepreneur. He had done one thing after another, and they hadn't really quite had liftoff. And the business he had when I first met him was, in that booster stage, rocket takeoff, about to really go to the moon. And I said, wow, I knew all these other things you've done. How did you know this was the one that was going to, to be successful? And he said, it's the one that took. So, you try, no, I think our friend Jim Quick says no toddler gives up crawling and says, that walking thing, I'm not going to try it anymore. I'm just going to crawl the rest of my life. So you didn't ask the question, but I'll give you the answer. Where I think that came from is my two awesome parents who, supported me and loved me and did all the right things. They had, the 9-to-5, job that you worked, 40 hours a week or more, and you got a bonus or a raise at the end of the year if you did good, or if you did, whatever the boss thought of or what have you. And, but every Monday, the first of every month, there's a direct deposit in the checking account, which I was grateful for. They were grateful for. But to me, it seemed a little bit of the rat race or the hamster on the wheel. And I'm just comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm comfortable with not knowing the outcome of a task or project. That can lead to some procrastination tendencies, because I may want to know more, but I don't. And sometimes you have to go from A to B. When you climb the mountain, once you get to the top, you see the next range. It's like you don't know that other range is there until you get to that level. So, but to call back to an earlier point, when you get to the top of that first mountaintop, take a breath, enjoy, look around. All right, on to the next. And that's just, I think, that's just how I am. I think I'm wired that way. And also, the environment I was in kind of said, what, this doesn't look like to be a path that I want to go down.
Yeah, I had a very strange conversation with Coolio, the rapper. And yeah, Gangster's Paradise. And someone had actually said to him about, Gangster's Paradise, that was brilliant. That took off. That was absolutely excellent. And he said it was one of his least favorite songs. And he said, he turned around and there was about 5 of us at the bar. And he said, have you ever heard this song? And he quoted this song and, ran out a few lyrics. And we all looked at him, no, never heard that. He said, I love that song. He said, and it was a flop.
Right.
He said, so you don't know what, and he quoted the same as your buddy. Maybe it was the same buddy, but he said, you don't know what takes until it takes. And he said, right. And when it takes, you're grateful, but it's not necessarily the one that you thought was going to happen. Right. And it is that. And I think it was Joe. Well, I know I got it from Joe Polish. I know everyone quotes each other's quotes, but I remember Joe Polish once saying to me, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And you had just mentioned that. That's a very scary position for a lot of people to take today, stepping into the unknown. How do you handle it?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's people way smarter than me that, are doing other things that may be a bit less interesting. To be comfortable with the uncomfortable, to be just, I don't know. It's a way of being that I find interesting. I don't do skydiving. I don't ride motorcycles. I want 4 pieces of German metal around me at all times, especially in places like LA. I don't know how you do it, but there's there's thrills to that, et cetera. So, but I don't even do roller coasters. But to me, this is my adrenaline, I guess. It's like, ooh, let me see if I can do this. And it's just, and I certainly have, thrown in the towel and toss my cards back into the stack and say, and that's part of it too. It's like knowing, as I love to quote the poet laureate Kenny Rogers, know when to fold them, know when to hold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. So it's, but also back to the Coolio talk about the song that took, the business that took, the marketplace decides. I mean, there may be only 4 people that want to buy this book. Great. That's fine. Oprah may pick it as a book club. I doubt it, but you never know. It could be 4 million. But the marketplace will decide. People may not have wanted, sugar-free, organic, naturally made wine. But Todd and I did, and we thought there was a need for it. And sure enough, a bunch of people liked it too. So It's the marketplace decides. So you throw the idea out there, and you let it see. And if you're not attached to the outcome, if you're not, I do dumb things, but I'm not a dumb person. I've never called myself dumb. I've never called myself stupid. I was like, oh, it was dumb not to double check the hotel reservation. I've got the wrong date. Or it was dumb I left the keys in the counter. But I'm not dumb. So as long as you can separate, I think, those two features or factors and say, okay, we all stub our toe and drop whatever, but that doesn't define us. Success isn't permanent and failure isn't fatal, as people say, as somebody smarter than me has said. So it's just, you got to be willing to put one foot in front of the other. I saw a crazy Instagram recently, and there was a young lady laying on the ground on a yoga mat. I think it was in New York, just laying on a yoga mat, which this person walked up and was like, what are you doing? You're just laying here like this. And she said, it's a 10-minute exercise that I read about in a book, that if you lay here on the ground on a yoga mat and people walk over you or reject you or look at you funny, then after 10 minutes, you've kind of developed a muscle that says, I don't care what people think about me. Stephen Colbert from The Late Show, when he was doing improv, he said he would ride the elevator to the floor where he was in nothing but his whitey tighties, just a pair of, Fruit of the Loom underwear. And people obviously are staring at this guy in the elevator in his underwear. And it removed any sort of self-consciousness, with a chisel. I mean, like pouring acid on it, but that's what it is. And so some people do techniques like that. Some people, I think, like yourself, it just kind of comes naturally to you. And just like I said, be comfortable, uncomfortable. Maybe you want to do one of those exercises, to get past it. What I found out is not, most people are focused on getting to work on time, getting their kids fed, getting their, bills paid, getting the yard mowed. They're not as concerned with what you're doing as you think they are, because they've got their own, which is fine, and can actually be freeing. Because if you're not, obviously if you're a mega superstar like your friends are up on stage with hundreds of thousands of people cheering them on, then yeah, they probably have a little bit more. But when they're screaming, "Oh, I love you, Elton," or whatever, then they don't really know them. They just know the visage. So you can kind of have the personal private in that regard. But people are I play this. I used to play this kind of game in airports and malls and stuff. I would just walk and I would try to make eye contact with every person I came across, and nobody was looking at me because they were on their phone. They're trying to get to their gate. They've got a meeting. They're eating a sandwich. They're drinking, whatever. And I'm trying to who's looking back, and nobody was, which is good. It gives you permission to then go do what you want to do, within reason, of course. Nobody needs to go to jail or hurt people, but that's, once you kind of realize that, I think that's also a very freeing part of that.
Yeah, I had Noah Kagan on a little while ago, and he said that before he goes into a meeting, everywhere he went that morning, he would actually ask for a discount. And he'd go into the coffee shop and go, I'd like a cappuccino. Can I get a 25% discount on that cappuccino? And they would look at him and they would like, no. He says sometimes they would actually give him a discount, but he said if he could get as many no's as possible, he became immune to it. And so when he's in a meeting and they went, well, no, he'd be like, wait up a second. And it wouldn't hurt him. But a lot of people, as you say, they hear that no and they freak and they freeze. And that's where shit goes wrong in that moment.
Well, I think if we think about it, our brains have been evolving for tens of thousands of years. And if you were excommunicated from the village or the tribe, you were out in the woods alone. So the fear of being rejected, I think, is a very deep-seated fear because, right now, as long as you got a credit card that works, you can have anything you want delivered to your house. You don't have to leave it again. Amazon, DoorDash, the toilet paper, everything, and the gas grill refill. Everything can be delivered. So, which is good and bad. But if you were in a village and in the tribe, then somebody had night watchman duty so you could sleep. Then the hunters went out and then the gatherers gathered and the people, took care of the children and mended the clothes, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the rejection gene is really deep in that, base of the brain, such that, being put out meant you had to go sleep with one eye open. You had to, cut down a tree to make a lean-to. You had to wrestle a deer down for dinner, et cetera, et cetera. You're on your own. So I think that's probably that's my theory as to why it's such a painful thing for people to be rejected, is because now they correlate that with isolation, which COVID got a lot of people who just went stir crazy being alone. Personally, I don't mind being alone, so it kind of worked out. It worked. I'm a very social introvert. So there's two things I love about a party. Number one, going to it, and number two, leaving it. So I'll go to an event, a party, or what have you. Can't wait. Plan, what am I going to wear? What am I going to take? Do I need to take a gift? Do I need to take this? What time should I get there? Where should I park? See everybody, enjoy it, and then about 2 hours in, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I've done this. I'm going to go home and kick it up on the sofa, have a glass of dry farm wines, and watch some TV or just read a book or what have you. So, that's okay for me. But for a lot of people, it was they need the energy of those other people, and I think that fear of rejection is what holds back, and it's trying to control that lizard brain or that limbic brain or whatever you want to call it. That's just got thousands of years of evolution that the past 20 years can't undo.
Yeah, I'd never thought of it like that as the villager. That's a great way of putting it, great context. So as we start to wrap this up, what's next for David?
Oh my gosh. A few irons in the fire. This has been really kind of a watershed moment, honestly, getting this book done. Like I said, I kept an Apple Note going for years of every little thing as an idea came, I kept it there. And when we finally went to print, I went back to the first note, and it was March of 2019. So it was pretty much 5 years in the making. So it's been, this is one of the mountaintops I'm just kind of like enjoying for the moment, honestly. I'm thrilled that you're my first podcast. You're a dear friend, and it was awesome of you to reach out and invite me. It means a lot. I'll be doing more. I would like to kind of build a little speech around, like a little 30-minute keynote type of thing, so I can kind of get this message out to people that's in the book. Got a few other little business things going. Going to be in France for the summer. So it's, I'm enjoying, I'm in the Eckhart Tolle mode of, being in the now, being in the present. So that's where I am.
That's a great place to be. David, where can people follow you on social?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. The Instagram is where I'm probably more active, david.s.allred at Instagram. I don't put a whole lot out there, but it's, some stuff like that, and Facebook. But I'll probably be building out some more stuff with the website. It's allthesame.com.
Perfect. We'll put the links in below. David, thank you very much for being a guest on the podcast. It's been thrilling to have you here, man. We wish you all the success with the book. It's All the Same by David Allred. And if you like wine, dry farm wines, my wife loves them. So there you go. That's a personal recommendation from my wife. And I trust her because she tells me I have to. So, David, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
We love Claire. Tell her hello. Thank you so much.
See you later, mate. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. You know what to do. If you love it, share, subscribe, but more than anything, do something with it. And remember, life's too short to play it safe. So disrupt, connect, and grow. See you next time.